Capital. She'll be doing a deep dive on their developer report. So let's give Maria a warm round of applause.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. So today I'm going to talk about the developer report. What the developer report does is it looks across all open source repositories contributing to crypto to understand the number of open source developers that are working in the space. First of all, why are open source developers important? Crypto is a very unique industry. At its peak, a $3 trillion industry that has unprecedented sort of transparency into how many people are working on it, what are they working on, what are their contribution patterns. And that's because crypto is very uniquely open source. Bitcoin started as open source, Ethereum is open source. Some of the most important projects are open source. And so we look at all of the commits across the open source crypto space and compile it every year into something called the developer report, which you can also find on developerreport.com. But without further ado, I'll just go through some of the numbers with you today. We have a lot of charts to go through, so this is a very numbers-forward presentation. So as of the last December 2023, we have 22,411 monthly active developers working in crypto. Again, this is only open source, so it doesn't include Coinbase developers, it doesn't include a lot of game developers. Anyone working in closed source would not be part of this number. So it's an undercounting of the number of developers in the space. Monthly active developers fell by 24% if you look year over year between December 2022 and December 2023. But what's really interesting, and this is a chart that I really like, is if you segment these developers by how long they've been working in crypto, it suddenly becomes very clear that the developers who have been working in crypto for more than a year are growing steadily. And so that's this dark blue and medium blue area of the chart right here. And in fact, experienced devs, so again, devs who have been contributing to crypto for more than a year, grew by 16% in 2023. And why do we care about these experienced devs? Well, it's because they contribute more code. 75% of code contributions are created by developers who have been in crypto for over a year. And developers who are working in crypto for over a year commit consistently more than newcomers. The dark blue line, so this maps the number of average monthly commits by developers. A established developer, so developers who have been working for 2+ years, has the highest average. And a newcomer, so someone who's been in crypto for less than a year, averages around 13 commits a month. And if you look at the number of established developers, so developers who have been in crypto for over 2 years, that has actually grown at a 52% annualized rate since 2018. And I think for me, I look at a lot of this data, and I've been in crypto since 2018. I think this really resonates with how I feel about crypto overall, which is that despite, despite bear markets or bull markets, it feels like there is a core group of people that continues to push crypto forward. And I think what's really fascinating here is that you can see that these developers who have been in crypto for 2+ years are growing steadily and are completely uncorrelated with prices. And the developer losses that we saw, so the decline by 24%, monthly active developers, almost all came from newcomers. Because newcomers, aka the developers who have been in crypto for less than a year, fell by 52% over the last year. So why did the number of newcomer developers rise and fall? This graphs the number of new people who join crypto every single year. So in 2023, we had over 47,000 new developers contribute to open source crypto for the first time. And if you break these newcomer numbers down on a monthly basis, and you look at it alongside network value, so that is the aggregate market prices of crypto, you can see that generally speaking, more newcomers come when prices appreciate, and fewer newcomers come when prices fall. I think that's not shocking to everyone, but I think what is really amazing and encouraging is that just because prices are lower doesn't mean newcomers stop coming. And in fact, when you see this enormous dip from 2021 that I think probably a lot of us felt when prices fell over 90%, we still had thousands of new developers joining crypto and contributing to crypto for the first time during these market lows. And not only that, but the developers who are joining during these market lows is actually higher than the 2018 numbers at its peak. And so crypto has really grown a lot in size over time. Newcomers account for most of the 2023 developer losses, and more developers joined in this bear market than even in the last bear market. So when newcomers come into crypto, where do they land? This is a breakdown of the number of newcomers by ecosystem in 2023. By far, Ethereum is the biggest draw for new developers. More than 16,000 newcomers wrote code for Ethereum in 2023. And that's 2.7x more than the next largest ecosystem, which is Polygon. So Polygon had over 6,000 new developers contribute code. Solana had over 4,000 new developers contribute code. BNB had 3,000. Cosmos had over 3,000. And we see a lot of familiar names kind of coming down this line. And there's a large torso, 17 ecosystems with over 1,000 new developers from 2023. And again, this was really in the depth of a bear market as well. And newcomers are actually supporting multiple chains. So if you add it across all of these numbers, you actually get more than the number of newcomers. And it's because developers are no longer just working on one chain. They're working across different ecosystems. So let's look at the number of multi-chain developers. 34% of all developers in 2023 built for multiple chains, so more than one chain. And 8.2% actually supported 5 or more chains. And the number of multi-chain developers have 10x'd since 2015, with most of that growth happening after 2018. So between 2018 and 2021, we saw 125% growth in the number of multi-chain developers. And what's really cool is the share of so there's about 30% of developers today are, again, 30% of monthly open source developers today work on more than one chain. And that's been holding very steady for the past 3 years. And so this multi-chain trend is not something that's going away and seems to have sticking power. All right, so we can look at which chains developers have in common. One way to do that is to draw a line between ecosystems when they have developers in common. What's really crazy is if you look at 2018, the ecosystem looked pretty simple. There was Bitcoin, who shared developers with Lightning, Bitcoin Cash, Stacks. And then there was kind of this Ethereum cluster who shared developers with Polkadot and Cosmos. 2020 was a little bit more complicated. In 2013, we have something truly very complex happening. And so taking a closer look at 2023, who shares developers with another chain during 2023? So the thicker the line, the more developers they share. And so just to call out some of these things, you see a very thick line between Cosmos and Osmosis, so strong developer overlap here. Strong overlap between Ethereum and Polygon. And then there's some islands, like Cardano or XRP, who don't share significant numbers of developers with other ecosystems. Ethereum shares the most number of developers with any other chain. I don't think that's surprising. It shares the most developers with Polygon, BNB, Arbitrum, and Optimism. And EVM-compatible chains share developers with other EVM-compatible chains. 87% of multi-chain developers work on at least one EVM chain. And And so one thing that kind of is curious is if these developers are working across multiple ecosystems, where does the innovation come from? Where do they deploy code first? These graphs look at the percentage of, so this starts to go on chain. This looks at the percentage of shared contract deployers across different EVM chains. So the way to read this is, of all the multi-chain base deployers, 15% of them deployed on Polygon, and 22% of deployers on multi-chain deployers on Base also deployed to Ethereum. And I think the first thing that pops up is that Ethereum has the most shared number of deployers with other chains, meaning that if you're deploying on another chain, you're very, very likely to have also deployed on Ethereum. Same with Polygon and same with BNB. BNB, Polygon, and Ethereum share a lot of multi-chain deployers with each other. And then there's also some kind of interesting nuggets in here where you can see, for example, that if you're a multi-chain Optimism deployer, 30% of Optimism's multi-chain deployers also deployed on Arbitrum, but only 13% of Arbitrum's multi-chain deployers deployed on Optimism, meaning that developers on Optimism are more likely to also deploy on Arbitrum, but deployers on Arbitrum may not go to Optimism. And so a lot of kind of interesting nuggets in here as well. All right, but where does innovation come from? And the way to look at that is, where is new code first deployed on chain? In order to do that, we do this thing called like logic fingerprinting, where we look at, we index across all the logic blocks, and we create a unique identifier for each piece of logic. And then we try to see where this logic first appears. And so that allows us to say, hey, this is where the first instance of this code appeared, and then it flowed to another chain. So using this methodology, we can see that 71% of contract code is initially deployed on Ethereum. This means that Ethereum is the largest exporter of innovation in multi-chain development. Most people do something novel and interesting on Ethereum first, and then take that code elsewhere to another EVM chain. And you can see that here too, right? Where the light yellow is native original code, and Ethereum very, very, very notably has the highest share of original code. But there's also some interesting surprises here too, at least for me when I was looking at this data, which is there's a fair amount of original code on BNB as well. BNB also originates a lot of new innovative things. Same with Polygon. You're starting to see some emerging on Arbitrum, some on Base. And so I think one thing I'm looking forward to is seeing, as these L2s mature and as more people are multi-chain, seeing some of the core innovation happening outside of Ethereum as well. And then the other thing we can do is trace where logic goes. So this graph says that, hey, if your logic started on Ethereum, where does it end up? So a lot of Ethereum logic ends up on BNB. A lot of it stays on Ethereum. A lot of it ends up on Polygon. And then you can also see that for the logic that originates from BNB, some of that goes over to Ethereum, Polygon, Arbitrum, et cetera, as well, which is really interesting to see how that innovation travels across different chains. I'll skip through some of this stuff. So today, 79% of monthly active open source crypto developers work on Bitcoin, Ethereum, or other top 200 crypto ecosystems by network value. And 40% work on Bitcoin or Ethereum. So how are Bitcoin and Ethereum devs doing? Let's go through Bitcoin pretty quickly. Bitcoin has over 1,000 monthly active developers. That's down 19% year over year. you can see that established developers, again, developers who have been in crypto for 2+ years, actually grew 7% in 2023. And all of the, well, not all of the losses, but almost all the losses came from these new developers who have been in crypto for less than a year, basically tested, did something in Bitcoin, and then left in 2023. And devs who build only for Bitcoin. So this is looking at monthly active developers by whether they only build on Bitcoin, are they single chain or multi-chain devs? And devs who build only for Bitcoin are more likely to stick around. Over 1,000 new developers join Bitcoin every year since 2017. And in 2023, Bitcoin notably saw a lot of transaction volume spikes. And a lot of that was because of ordinals, which is the black part of this chart. And so then if we are to look at ordinal open source development, 40% of all Bitcoin open source developers were focused on Bitcoin L2s and scaling solutions in 2023. And that has shown a lot of growth over time. Ordinal is only 3% of open source activity, but the community was consistently active in 2023. I think it's also important to note that for most NFT projects, there's not really a ton of continuous open source contributions you have to make. And so that's one thing to keep in mind in looking at these numbers as well as the fact that most NFT projects actually are often closed source, so not many of them are open source. All right, now let's look at Ethereum. Ethereum had 7,864 monthly active developers by the end of 2023. That fell 25%. Again, established developers, which is that darker line, grew by 37%. And all of the losses came from newcomers who have been in crypto for less than a year. A lot of the losses were actually evenly spread across multi-chain and single-chain developers. So just because you were a multi-chain developer doesn't mean you were more likely to leave Ethereum. One kind of interesting thing here is, is that multi-chain developers exceeded single-chain developers for the first time in 2021. So right now we're, at least at the end of 2023, we were about even in terms of if you were a developer on Ethereum, half of you are multi-chain and half of you only work on Ethereum. But that was not always the case. For most, half of Ethereum's history, I guess, most developers were single-chain developers only. And so multi-chain is, again, this new emerging thing we're seeing that have stuck around. 15,000 new developers supported Ethereum in 21, 22, and 2023. Of course, in 2022, it skyrocketed to 37,000. But even in 2023, we're still seeing new developers coming in at higher numbers than many of the previous years. And so a lot of new developers are still flooding into the Ethereum ecosystem. OK, with the last minute, I'm going to skip over a lot of this stuff. You can look at all of these charts on developerreport.com. So this breaks it down even more by different ecosystems. We can look at Arbitrum and Avalanche and Celo, et cetera. So again, just in the interest of time, I'll skip over some of this stuff. Maybe one thing to note that's pretty interesting is there are a lot of new ecosystems that emerged in 2023, and Base is the biggest new ecosystem to appear in 2023. They started with 0 devs before 2023 and had 1,000 over the course of Q4. Linea, Mantle, and Polygon ZK EVM are also very notable new ecosystems that are new since 2022. OK, so let's skip through to the geographic data, which I think is very interesting. There's, we look at DeFi developers, we look at NFT developers. So where are crypto developers located around the world? To get this data, we look at self-reported location data for 25,000 open source developers. What's really amazing is that crypto development is not concentrated in any geographic data. It's actually quite distributed and decentralized around the world. And 72% of crypto developers actually live outside of North America. And so the US and North America is really not the center of activity when it comes to open source developers and where they live. In fact, the United States has been steadily losing share of developers since 2018. In 2018, the US had 40% share of all open source crypto developers, and that has steadily declined over time. Now we have 26% in 2023. So the more red means that you lost developers. Green means that you gained developers. And so the US lost the most developer share over 2020, since 2018. But you can see a lot of regions kind of growing a lot of its developer share. And that includes India, parts of Africa, South America, parts of Europe. And developers in general has shifted outside of North America and Europe since 2018. So my time is up, but if you have any questions, if you want to, the full report is actually 180 slides of charts. So if you would like to take a look at that, please go to developerreport.com, and thank you so much for your attention.
All right, thanks so much, Maria. That was great, super insightful. Next up, we have a very, very interesting panel. You want to make sure you stick around for AI and crypto integration. So we're just going to